now on Arkansas Crime Watch.
It makes me really upset because, people have spent hours on hours, every week on painting these things.
Vandals tag Art Alley. The crime all caught on camera. A sex trafficking lawsuit.
It is happening, and if we see something, we need to say something.
Hotel employees accused of ignoring screams for help after women are kidnapped, beaten, and forced to have sex. Sentenced to 80 years, an elder with the Jehovah's Witness Church learns his fate.
Through 75 counties and hundreds of investigations, from the most violent crimes to petty infractions. This is Arkansas Crime Watch with Kevin Kelly.
Good evening and thanks for watching Arkansas Crime Watch on FOX16.com. I'm Kevin Kelly. We begin tonight with a lawsuit filed against a Little Rock hotel owner accused of looking the other way as sex trafficking allegedly happened on the top floor of the former business. The woman who filed the lawsuit claims she was sold for sex hundreds of times. And as Susan Elcori reports, the lawsuit could be a bombshell and result in a landmark case for the state.
It really does happen.
The top floor of this Little Rock hotel is where a woman claims she was forced to stay and in just a few months sold for sex hundreds of times. That happened 5 years ago, but went unreported until a recent lawsuit.
It is happening, and if we see something, we need to say something.
It's a tragic story Casonia Vincent has heard before working with sex trafficking victims. But she calls the suit a first, since it argues the former Quality Inn was negligent for not stopping the abuse.
Because that's typically who you see get arrested are the victims or the traffickers. Nobody looks at the bigger picture or even the middleman.
According to the lawsuit, the woman named as Jane Doe says her traffickers booked the entire top floor, forcing her to have sex with 10 to 12 individuals per day. And while she was being beaten, she screamed for her life with no response. It goes on to say no one from the hotel staff ever offered help.
And sometimes people just close their eye to what's really happening.
It's something we tried to ask the owner, but haven't heard back. No guests are checking in since the hotel was bought and closed for renovations. But advocates say that Jane Doe could be the voice to help stop another hotel from being used for trafficking.
They know that someone's going to come after them and shut those operations down.
Joining me now are the attorneys who filed the suit, Lauren Manatt and Meredith Moore with Rainwater, Holt Sexton. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
I'm still trying to grasp this lawsuit. I just can't fathom that this actually happened. Can you give us a brief update? And let's start with you. How did this first come to light? How did we catch wind of this? Because it happened 5 years ago.
Right. So we've been hearing from other attorneys around the country that this type of behavior is occurring, and they've had some success going after hotel owners and kind of targeting the venue that's allowing the sex trafficking to occur. So we started realizing that may be happening in Arkansas and looking into it and investigating it, and it's taken us over a year to get to where we are today, but we're hopeful that this is the first step in instilling some change here in Arkansas.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in a minute. Meredith, maybe you could shed some light on how we were able to find these victims, these survivors, and how you were able to gain their trust.
So I think that has been probably one of the more time-consuming things, is that these are, the plaintiff here and any future plaintiff in this type of case, these are victims of sexual abuse, physical abuse, and so trauma is something that they deal with regularly, and that takes a while for them to kind of get to a point where they can talk about what they went through and sort of the abuse that they were dealing with on a regular basis. And so building trust with our plaintiff has been, a big part of all of this. As far as, her being willing to be the one to sort of be the plaintiff in this case, she's just a very strong individual, and she has, it's been several years since this abuse was happening to her, and she has really taken charge of her life, and she is determined not only to make her life something that she is proud of, but also to hopefully create some sort of change in this world of human trafficking as well.
How many victims, survivors are we talking about here? We know Jane Doe came forward, thank goodness for that, but how big of an operation was this? Do we know?
Oh, I mean, we have visited with several victims. This is the first Jane Doe lawsuit that we've been able to file, but I mean, I would say there are hundreds of victims just within Central Arkansas.
Really? Some might question why they weren't able to escape. Was that ever an option, at least for Jane Doe?
No, I mean, these, something that we're really trying to destigmatize human trafficking. This is not prostitution. These women are true victims. They are often kidnapped. They are influenced into this lifestyle, and they are being held against their will. They are, drugs are introduced into their life, and they become addicted to drugs. They are not getting any of this money that the customers are paying the traffickers, and they are beaten if they don't do what they're told by their traffickers. So, these people, this is not a choice. This is something that they are forced into, and is a huge, huge problem.
I want to talk about the traffickers. Are they on the radar? Are they going? Are people going after them now as a result of this lawsuit?
So, hopefully, yes. We are civil attorneys, and so we're trying to do our part on the civil side, but we are very hopeful and optimistic that on the criminal side that there's going to be some prosecution against the actual traffickers as well.
In terms of the hotel owner, was he or she a part of this operation? Were they getting paid? Did they know this was going on? I mean, how do they work into this?
So we don't have direct evidence of the owner actually taking money from the traffickers directly, anything like that at this point. Now, discovery is ongoing, so that may be something that we find out. What we do know is that based on all of the circumstantial evidence that we have and that we've been told from numerous witnesses and our plaintiff, they certainly had every reason to know that this was going on under their roof.
Let's talk about the bigger picture in terms of your lawsuit. It's the first of its kind in Arkansas, claiming civil liability against a hotel for sex trafficking.
Correct. Is
this going to be a difficult case?
Yes.
How so?
We're not naive to the fact that this is going to be a challenge. How so? Any type of sexual offense is very intimate, right? It's not going to be something that's caught on camera in the rooms, things like that. So we're not going to have that hard evidence, but we are hoping with the facts that we know and the facts that we can prove that there's enough circumstantial evidence to prove knowledge or that they should have known. So in civil's a little bit different than criminal in that we don't have to prove intent, we only have to prove negligence. And so we are not naive that there are going to be obstacles, but we are very optimistic that with the plaintiff we have and the facts that we know in this case, that this is the best first step.
There's also no precedent, am I correct in that?
That's right. This is a totally new case in Arkansas, and it's pretty new across the country.
Across the country, yeah.
There are only a few states that have filed this type of lawsuit before, and the majority of them have not even reached resolution yet. So we know we're in for an uphill battle. To sort of tag off of what Lauren said, having done domestic violence and sex crimes as a prosecutor, those are difficult cases, exactly like what Lauren said. I mean, these are not bank robberies that are on video. This is behind closed doors in a very intimate setting. It's also something that's not talked about openly, and people are afraid to talk about this kind of crime. And so it makes it really difficult for purposes of, criminal prosecution, but the same goes for us on the civil side of things. Our burden is much less. The preponderance of the evidence burden is not the same criminal beyond a reasonable doubt standard, but we're certainly going to face our fair share of obstacles in beating the law here.
One final question. What could this case ultimately do in terms of policy change to where hotels might be held more accountable for if you see something, say something.
Right. That is our ultimate goal. That we would consider that success coming out of this lawsuit, even if we don't find success in the civil system itself. But hotels need to be aware that they have a duty to maintain a safe environment for their patrons. and that you can't just bury your head in the sand. That's not going to be allowed here in Arkansas any longer. That is our goal. That is why we're pushing forward with this case. And if we learn of more, we intend to push forward with more cases as well. So,
well, we wish you the best of luck. Of course, we'll be following this very closely on Arkansas Crime Watch, but we do appreciate your time. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
Moving on, a leader in a Cleburne County